Well, I made the trailer and you guys did not.
You beat me to the joke.
Yeah, it's funny. We played it yesterday too, and Kyra and Kelly were on, and they're like, "Oh, he didn't even get in the trailer," but I think it was. I'm not sure if we had all the matches locked in before Chad made that.
No, it's only the main cards, dude. That's how it works in all the other sports.
Yeah, but technically, Kyra and Kelly are also listed as a main card. We just didn't have them locked in at the time. James has done reps ed 3 times, and the others didn't make the semifinals for whatever reason. So we were a little bit more proactive in terms of reaching out to them. And but once we had the caliber of athlete of Kyra and Kelly, we were like, it would be insulting to them to not call that a lead card, considering their credentials and accolades at this point in their career. Not to say that you guys don't have good credentials and accolades at some points in your careers.
Right.
Well, it's
anyway, keep it honest here for sure. This is a week we've been doing some shows building up to Reps Ahead that will be happening this weekend, as you saw in Thornton, Colorado. We have a total of 6 matches. Today we have the athletes that will be competing in the 3rd match. We have a couple of community matches, male, female matches from some top 500 in the quarterfinals type of athletes, and then leading into a matchup. I'm not even sure what to call this matchup. It's not a legends match. It's not a legacy match. You guys are still young and fit guys, but
one of us is
Yeah.
young.
Jake is the youngest.
Jake is younger than Malachi. And so anyway, we have got Jake Marconi. Currently, if you're integrally involved with the CrossFit space, you probably know him from his coaching accolades and involvement with HWPO, but we're going to give you guys a little bit of background on his athletic achievements as well, which are pretty good in the sport of CrossFit. And then Malachi Bennett, who you may have seen compete at Reps Ahead during the Pro 2 match down in Jacksonville. If you are a little bit more into some of the smaller off-season competitions, you might have also seen him win the Masters Fitness Championship last September for the 30 to 34 age division, which is quite a battle, actually. It's a fun competition to watch. I was there for that one. And then also he podiumed at NorCal Classic last year behind multiple times Games athletes Tim Paulson and Sean Sweeney. So some pretty good recent competition resume for Malachi. But along those lines, maybe just give some people a chance to have the background for each one of you guys. Jake, we'll start with you of, especially as a competitor, for people who may not have seen you compete in the last couple of years. You've been actually you're only 27 years old now. Is that right? But you started competing when you were pretty young.
Yeah, I was 18 when I did my first open. I was 17, but I aged into 18, which was the first year that they had the teenage CrossFit Games. So I missed the age cutoff for the CrossFit Games. My scores would have qualified me, but my age, I was too old by the time the games came around. I can't remember. I think it was you had to turn 18 after the games happened.
Usually the cutoff is actually sometime in July, about a month before the games.
I turned 18 in March, so it was during the Open. Yeah, and so I'm actually glad. I've said this many times. I'm glad that I didn't get to go because I think I would have gotten some sense of achievement that wasn't legit. Not that being a teen games athlete's not legit, just the scores would have qualified me, and at that time I wasn't ready to go compete and really make that my entire life. So that was the first Open I did, and that from there I progressed every year. I think I was 500th in the region in that Open in 2015, and then 16 was top 100, 17 missed regionals by 2 spots after some backfills, and then in 18 I qualified for regionals, and ever since then I've been at that level, competing at the semifinals at regionals.
So basically, as soon as you started doing CrossFit, you realized that you were good enough to potentially qualify for some serious competitions.
Yeah. That's what kept me doing CrossFit. So I was playing high school football. I got my gym involved in the CrossFit gym. I was 14. I was really into training. I was competing in powerlifting at the time. I had just stopped being a fat kid. I trained enough that I lost a bunch of weight.
It was offensive line. That's who you're playing?
No, I was running back. I was way too short to be offensive line, and I wasn't fat enough. I had to pack on some pounds if I wanted to be that. But I was playing football for high school, but I wanted to train. That's all I wanted to do. And so we didn't have a program for our football team to train. And so I reached out to a local CrossFit gym, Land Warrior CrossFit's in Connecticut. And I said, hey, I want to train these guys out of your gym. Can we come use your space? And they were like, no, you're 14. Why do you think you could do that? You can come to class twice a week. We'll do a special football class. And so they ran a special football class for us twice a week. They charged us all $25 a month, which is nothing.
Damn.
And every Tuesday, Thursday at 7:00, our football team would show up, and that's how we learned CrossFit. So it was that's the gym right there.
Wow, great find, Patrick.
I was 16 or 17 in that video. So
those plates are actually just air, right?
Yeah, that's 410. Those are the 45s. Those are those VTS.
Those might be those fake 45s, actually.
Look at the shoes. Those are some OG nails.
I'm just impressed with the hair, honestly. Look at that flow.
I kept that all the way till college.
Yeah, Malachi, how far back?
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, how far back in your pseudo Instagram feed would we have to go to find hair like that?
A few years, actually.
So, Mal, you're like 5 years older than Jake. Where were you at in 2015-16? What were you doing at that time?
2015. My son was probably 2 or 3 at the time, full-time job, and still training like crazy. That was like in the heart of like the game season. I feel like when it was really starting to ramp up. And CrossFit was really, I think, seemed like they were really focused on like the competition side of things, and I was just super excited. I was trying to get to the games, open regionals, and I was training probably like 3 times a day. But
3 times a day in addition to having a 2-year-old kid and working full time.
Yeah. And then I think at the time it was odd. I actually went through like some firefighting stuff and police academy stuff. I couldn't really decide what I wanted to do, but I was doing some school stuff. I was
a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
And if you haven't yet, which I don't think very many people probably have, but we put out an article previewing this, all the events that are coming up this year or this weekend, all the matches coming up. Dude, these are great old school footages.
Can you drill that tank top, please?
That was at the police academy. I was still training like crazy at the gym over there.
Dude, this is 10 years ago, and you were freaking jacked.
Yeah.
Holy cow! Well, I mean, actually, it's good for people to see stuff like this, though, because a lot of times, for many people, maybe the first time they ever heard of you was at the NorCal last year, or the Masters, championship last year, whatever. Maybe it was at Reps Ahead, who knows? And you can just see this guy and be like, oh yeah, pretty good, pretty impressive athlete, clearly fit, and not realize that that's been a decade plus of working on your body, your health, your fitness, your capacity, the foundation that it takes to be able to compete at that level at those types of competitions. Like, it doesn't just happen overnight.
Right. Yeah, there was a time where we were competing at some kind of a local comp or something, like it seemed like every weekend or every other weekend. We were either going to Montana or Colorado, South Dakota. We were just in the heart of it at that point.
And that's a cool CrossFit story right there. We've all had that year 3 where you're just competing at every chance you get.
Right. Yeah. Anything that you can find at that point.
You guys have a fanboy here, Josh Godinez. Malachi Bennett absolutely ate my lunch on some Legas rope climbs in a final at TFX 2021. Jake Marconi beats me up. In the gym all the time. That's firepower.
Just at home.
So, but anyway, in this, in the the preview for this competition, it's obviously is Reps Ahead, but it's also got this subtitle of Redemption, and we had an opportunity. Phil is incredibly excited about the fact that I think the last time you guys competed against each other, maybe the only time, I don't know, that you competed together was 7 or 8 years ago at the Granite Games.
Look at that guy.
And that was the last time? Was it the only time?
I mean, if you don't count like the Open and quarterfinals, but yeah, in person, it was Granite Games.
Yeah.
So Granite Games 2017, Granite Games more recently had hosted a semifinal a couple years ago. But for a long time, this was kind of like the premium competition in early summer in the Midwest. And it was there were a lot of good athletes that were trying to compete at this competition every year. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially like Malachi is saying, of someone who's kind of on the grind on these competitions. At that point in each of your careers, was it a big deal to qualify for this competition or to get the chance to compete there?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was my first big competition that I qualified for. I did Wadapalooza as a teen, but then in the Open Pro division, it was my first big competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same for me. I did Wadapalooza in the RX division. I think it was either this year or the year before. I can't remember, but yeah, I just remember I was like stoked after the qualifier results, and I was like just cloud nine. Like couldn't believe I made it through Granite Games.
Same. To this day, that's my favorite competition that I had ever done. This is ugly. Oh man, play this. Watch those knees. Watch them. Oh.
It's your favorite. It's your favorite competition. You mean like specifically that year, the 2017?
Specifically, the 2017 Granite Games was my favorite competition because I went in and it was all fun. It was like there was no expectation. I was just stoked to be there. I had zero nervousness that was tied to performance. I was just like, we'll see what happens, man. Like, let's go in and have some fun. And it was fun all the way through. And there were some big names there that year. The Panchik brothers were there. Nick Uranker was there. I want to say Nick Matthew might have been there. And it ended up being a good result for me, but competed with no nerves, no pressure. It was a ton of fun.
Which is not, is not always an easy thing to do. And I'm guessing that as you progress through your career and you get a chance to compete at some regionals and semifinal levels, that maybe you're always pursuing that kind of competing free type of feeling, but there does at some point become a certain level of expectation and pressure that you put on yourself.
Yeah, there is. I mean, nobody knows you, right? You don't know anybody. So you're just another person that's on that competition floor. You don't feel like you're being looked at really. And then you get to a point where you know a certain amount of people know you, expect some sort of result out of you. And that going into a competition is a different type of pressure.
Do you remember anything similar to that, Malachi? Obviously it was a big deal to qualify for this. Did you feel pressure going to compete in Minnesota, or was it similar for you in terms of a cool opportunity to just embrace it?
Yeah, no, it was probably the same exact feeling for sure. Like I didn't really know what to expect. I was just stoked to be there, and I was like, okay, I'm going against these guys. Like Jake said, like the Panchik brothers were huge. Nick Uranker at the time was just like, dude could almost clean and jerk 400 pounds, and I just remember like running past him on the trail run, like, oh my gosh, I just passed Nick Uranker. Is this happening? Like, what is going on right now? Like, am I meant to be here? And like just every part of it, and like in that one, I remember I was like pretty close to Nick. I could see him like in the distance, and I was just like, it's just one of those surreal experiences that this is like you're doing it and you're just happy to be there, and I think you're just totally in the moment, and like I'd say the same thing as Jake, like probably my favorite competition, even though I made it to regionals, and that was probably like my biggest like accolade as an athlete. This one was the coolest and probably the most proud I was, for sure, just because at the time it was the Granite Games, which was awesome, which is still, I don't know, do they do that anymore? I haven't really heard.
Well, I think John Swanson, who used to run it, sold it eventually to Loud and Live, and they obviously were running semifinals there. Loud and Live still owns it. I think that there's a potential for them to eventually bring it back, but right now it's kind of just like sitting dormant, waiting. I think if done properly and the Granite Games came back, that it could be a huge success.
Yeah, for sure. And what was odd too was it was in St. Cloud, Minnesota. So my freshman year of college, that was the college that I went to, was St. Cloud State, and I did swimming and diving there. Yeah, so I knew the campus. It was pretty cool.
No wonder you did so well in NorCal. They had like half the events were in the water last year.
Yeah.
I've never seen a competition with more water events. I think there were 3 out of 8 water events or something.
Yeah, for sure. That was pretty cool. And the first year at NorCal, the year that I won, I had actually, not knowing anything at all, I promise, but I had practiced the swim DT workout. I was just like, let's do some dumbbells. And I was like, let's swim down and back like a couple times and we'll do DT. So we'll do like DT, but then we'll swim in between. And that was the same exact workout. And I was like,
Dude,
you guys,
crazy.
I know how this feels.
I actually just did DT this morning. I modified the weight with some calories on the bike as a buyout in a time interval. I just jumped in with Taylor Self's training, and he just threw this idea out there after we trained. He's like, dude, I think DT, run a mile DT, like we got to see that workout out there, where they had a version of it at NorCal with swimming. Anyway, yeah, that's it's also cool to hear you guys say that. I mean, if you look at some of the footage there that Patrick was pulling up, it's hard to tell necessarily how full the stands are. The shot of you on the Echo bike there, the behind the athletes is usually not as full as the front of the athletes. And I have no idea, was there any streaming of that competition? Was there any way to watch it if you weren't on site?
I think Flow Elite was there.
That's
Flow
right.
Elite?
Yeah.
But you had to almost pay for it. I
There's
think
a paywall,
like
$30, and then they locked you in once.
Right. Yeah. That was, the 1 year I did the broadcast at Wadapalooza with Bill Grunler, is still with Flow Elite, the same thing. But they were in the game for a while, working with some of those competitions. There weren't as many competitions of that caliber and stage back then. And streaming competitions has always been kind of a challenge. But as you guys alluded to, Saxon and Spencer Panchik take first and second that year. Nick Urenko fifth. Some cool names in this field: Brian Wong, Dylan Martin, Austin Spencer, Andrew Hiller, 14th place. Blair Chapman, one of the OGs.
OG.
Brendan Willis out of Canada. And guys that are still making the semifinals now. Tucker McLemore was down at the 20th place that year. So some Jacob Fry, who you may have seen at Rogue Invitational year number 1 through the qualifier. So yeah, it's always awesome that there's some cool, you look at old leaderboards and you realize that same thing that I mentioned earlier, that like these guys that you see at the biggest stages, they've been grinding and putting in the work and getting that competition experience dating back to then. But I skipped over third and fourth because that's where this is really leading to, is that Jake, you were sitting in a podium spot for, it looks like, when I look at this without doing too much math, heading into the last day, or maybe at least the last event, and you were charging pretty hard. Malachi was kind of right behind you, and it basically was coming down to the final.
It did come down to the final.
And I don't know how close Nick was, because he actually beat you guys both on the final, but I think he was too far back to do anything about it.
I remember he had a tough trail run, which Malachi mentioned. And then there was another event that was a run swim, and he had a tough run swim.
Yeah.
He had quite frankly, a brutal start to the competition. 21st in the trail run, 17th in the hill sprint. He did well on this event called Cycle, and then 14th on the swim run. He closed really hard, first, 8th, 6th, 2nd. But I think you guys were too far ahead. And for most people, or for the most part, it looks to me, looking at the leaderboard, that you guys probably knew that one of you was going to get the podium and one was going to miss out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, for athletes in general, when you show up to a competition, and any competitor is going to say, like, I'm here to win. But as you progress throughout the weekend, that reality sometimes just becomes impossible. And you're like, oh, I'm not beating Saxon Panchik this weekend. What's the next most realistic goal? And in this case, for a lot of athletes, like, the secondary goal is, okay, well, if I can't win, then let me get on that podium. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you're lining up for the final and you're in a position like that, what is this workout? It's called down and back. Oh my God. The way they used to write workouts back then is crazy. Deadlifts and handstand walking or something like that?
No, the final had box jump overs in it.
Yeah, and I think it was legless rope climbs also. It was like burpee, box jump overs, legless. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, legless rope climbs. So you're licking your chops, Mal.
Yeah, at the time I was like, okay. But I was good at rope climbs. I didn't do a whole lot of legless. So, that's really different. So it's kind of hard to know how to pace that. But yeah, luckily I had Westy Gwill. He was in my corner. He was kind of like coaching me at the time, and he's just like a human calculator, So he was like, I was just the one that's focused on competing, and he's like, okay, you got to be this far ahead of this guy, and it's okay if you finish this far back. And I'm just like, just yell at me and tell me to go faster or slower. Like, I don't really know. So, yeah, I just remember he's got a pretty cool video. I should ask him to send it to you. But yeah, of me finishing that, I was pretty stoked.
There are some workouts where Malachi, I'm sure you feel the same way, where you just like somebody says the workout and you can immediately be back in it on the competition floor. That workout, I specifically remember I kept my chalk at the back of my mat and I would chalk. I'd walk over to like the barrier and then I'd do a rope climb, and I'd do that every single time. And we were kind of neck and neck, and it came down to the last set of burpee box jump overs between Malachi and I. We were kind of going back and forth. I'd gain a little on the sandbag. And then on the burpee box jump overs, I remember doing my reps, and I was turning my head to the right because that's where he was. And I saw him just clearing the box. And I don't mean like just inching over. I mean, just there was no box. He was just straight over it. And I knew in that moment, I was like, I can't do that. And so he took the win.
And look at this. Damn. Wait, what is that?
One second. Nope. Give me a second.
That's like, that's not what I was looking for. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
The long pants in the USA, Mal. Okay.
I know. I love working out in sweats for some reason. Keeps the knees warm.
I just have to say this because you said that. I think this was at the first year of Strength in Depth, where they had an open announcement that was like paired with their competition. And it was like 2 a.m. and some of the athletes did the workout. And then Heber and Marston were going to do the workout, and they were trying to find a third person to do it. I wanted Craig Ritchie to do it because he's actually fit and could like compete with them. He said no. So I was like, well, I'll do it. But I was literally wearing gray sweatpants and a t-shirt. Like, it's 2 a.m. I think I probably like slept, woke up, came there, and was like going back to sleep. And I did the workout with them in sweatpants. I beat Heber didn't do great on that workout. It was 19.1. There's wall balls and rowing. And I ended up beating Marston by 1 calorie, which I don't think there's any other open workouts that ever could have come up that I could have beat either of those guys in. Gymnastics, barbell, forget it. But just, 19-minute grind or whatever it was. And they made their their vlogs like they always do. And they come and Heber's like, dude, you ever go to the rec? You like line up for a basketball game, you see some old guy over there with like rec specs and sweatpants on, and then he just like hits every shot and cleans the house. That's how I felt losing to Brian in this workout. And that's how Jake felt losing to you back in 2017.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was a day for sure. Actually, it's NSA, Nemesis Sports Academy was like the kind of like the gym that was representing at the time.
I don't know why I would have seen that color scheme and thought USA, but I bet.
But well, yeah, their colors is red, white, and blue. But I do remember I definitely making sure I found Jake after the event and got his number too, to make sure that we could do some training stuff together. And he did send me some awful workouts after that for sure. One that I'll never forget was the assault bike one, and I remember him texting me and he was like, yeah, dude, Matt Fraser did this assault bike workout, dude, to see if you can see what your pace is. And it was like, what was it, every 5 minutes, like 35 cals, dude. I was not the same person after that workout at all.
No, that was
35 cals for time, and then rest of the 5 minute mark and go again.
In 5 sets.
Oh,
yeah. I remember Matt sent it to me. He goes, hey, me and Nick Palladino just did this workout. Give it a try and let me know your scores. And I was like, yeah, well, how'd you approach it? Like all out, not all out? And he goes, just do the workout.
Classic. Nick Palladino throwbacks. This is probably not too long after that, like 2018 maybe.
Yeah, this was very soon after. A small backstory on Granite Games is Granite Games, where that venue was, that was a gross piece. Where that venue was that we were competing, the final event was on the floor in like the field house, which was next to the arena. And the field house had this mezzanine on it. So like you could watch from above, but it was private. And Matt Fraser was there doing an appearance, and we had become friends in 2016. We had met, and I knew Sammy and him. He was there doing an appearance. He was like, hey, I'm going to watch you compete at Granite Games. And so he watched all the workouts that were on the field house floor. So I also knew during the workout that Matt was watching, and not only watching, but watching me lose this final event and get that podium spot taken at the final hour.
And so you guys, and you were friends with him already.
Yeah.
So you weren't like you were conscious of he was watching, but it's not like you were like, oh fuck, the fittest guy on earth is watching me here. Like it was a buddy.
Yeah, there was a little bit of both, but I think that back then I just like there was no pressure to it because I didn't even see myself as potentially in the same bracket. So I wasn't like whatever.
You tagged Noah Olson, Matt Fraser.
That was 2015. That was January. I was maybe 2 weeks into doing CrossFit.
What is this at?
That's at the East Coast Classic in the Boston Seaport.
Wow. Oh yeah. Cause like I remember Bergeron was kind of promoting that, wasn't he?
Yeah,
that's
the ECC.
Noble launched at the ECC.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Dude, this is
man, there's like flooding memories back.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
All built out of plyo boxes, and they launched with their canvas trainer that was like, it wasn't even a training shoe. It was like a kick around shoe for the most part. Killcliff was the main sponsor. They had a massive booth there.
The ECC was like a big deal. That was a big competition for several years.
Yeah.
And then it went away. And I mean, unless I'm mistaken, there has not really been a competition in the Northeast that's like risen up and replaced it.
No.
I know there's some that are trying to. I mean, Metcon Rush is in Maryland next month, and Fight for the Fittest will be out in Long Island, I think, in September. But yeah, this was like the premier competition in the East Coast back then. And obviously you had, that was 2015. Fraser and Olson were already games athletes coming off of a second place and an 8th place finish as rookies the year before.
Yeah.
And they were competing there. That's pretty legit. Damn. Yeah. Maybe we'll have some competition revivals coming up in the next couple of years. But in the meantime, we have a athlete resurrection from Jake Marconi. Was there, when did you get invited to do this? And what was your mindset? Like, yeah, for sure, I'll do this for a match against Mallory. It's like, do I really want to do this? Walk us through it.
I had a call with Phil, who I don't know if everybody knows this, started Reps Ahead. And he he called me and he was just telling me about Reps Ahead, and he finished the call and he was like, yeah, so that's the thing. I want you to compete in it in June. I was like, man, I wasn't planning on competing at all. He's like, well, you've been training, right? And I was like, no, not really. Like I've been working out for sure, but I can't tell you the last time I've done like a CrossFit movement, like a chest to bar or a thruster or anything. He's like, well, what if you just came? And for some reason, like Phil he's an inspiring dude. If you talk to him, he's got a ton of passion for Reps Ahead, and he's clearly got this conviction about the format and CrossFit in general, and he's really excited about it. And his energy caught me in the right moment, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And immediately it was like, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to get a little bit fitter before this comp.
And at that point, did you know that he wanted you to go against Malachi?
Yeah, he said it during the event or during the call. Yeah.
So there wasn't like a little itch in the back of your head of, oh, it's Malachi and I owe him one?
No, it's a fun story to talk about, but I've dealt with that scar. Dealt with it pretty quick.
And Malachi, you're no stranger to the Reps Ahead format. Phil has run several iterations of it more on the local level, and then he's had these kind of pro showcases. How many times have you been involved in a Reps Ahead event?
I think 3 or 4. Yeah, I remember the first one. There was like multiple workouts in the first one. Yeah, that one. And so that was a really cool format. It was almost like tournament bracket style. So, if you beat somebody, you go on to the next, and you just kind of work your way up the bracket. So that was kind of cool, exhausting, but it was cool. And then I remember the next one was actually similar, And then I ended up getting second to Tyler Eggeman in that one. He definitely crushed that
probably
last
ended up being
workout.
that was probably the, unbeknownst to you guys, the qualifier for Pro 1.
Yeah, it kind of was, yeah.
Because Tyler Eggeman ends up being in the Pro 1 showcase, like the final match against
Sprague, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, it's been a journey. I'm just glad to be a part of it, honestly. And Phil, just like Jake said, he's super passionate about what he does. I definitely believe in what he's doing, and I think I got all the potential in the world for sure. And you really couldn't pick a better person to be in this kind of position, right? Where it's almost like in my opinion, like a new sport that you're creating, and it just has all this potential. And I think the wrong people would be doing it for the wrong reasons, and that's definitely not Phil.
No, yeah. I've gotten to know him pretty well the past several months, and he's like you said, very passionate. He has a very clear mind about what this thing is, what it can become, and he's pouring himself into it with very pure intentions and passion for showcasing the athletes, creating a new opportunity, partnering with Michael, the Renovo, the New You Cares to support the veteran initiative that he has there. There's just it's just a lot of good things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was we promised you guys 30 minutes. We went a little bit over. Easy to talk to, both of you guys. Really cool backstory, obviously personally, but also just to give some people the context that you might see these people, athletes, whoever they are, show up somewhere and do something impressive, but it's a lot of work to get there. That's something that I'm super conscious of, and it's a big motivator for me in terms of a lot of the things that I do, of trying to get more athletes and more competitions, more recognition, because maybe there's 1 in a million that can walk off the streets, go to a CrossFit competition and throw down and do something impressive, but the rest of us have to put in the work for a long time just to have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
Both flying in on Friday, or Malachi, could you drive or fly over there?
Yeah, I'm just gonna drive. It's probably like 5 hours from Casper here. So,
Jake, you coming in Friday?
9 p.m. I get in.
Oh shit! You're the last one. I thought I was the last one in.
The last one, dude. I come in and I'm out on Sunday, so we'll see how this elevation goes.
You gonna be coming from Vermont or where?
Rhode Island. I'm in Vermont right now, but I'll be coming from Rhode Island. I got to fly back Sunday because I have a wedding, so big weekend.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, for sure. That's busy.
Sweet. Well, I think it's going to be a fun one. I appreciate you guys both doing it, especially Jake. I obviously have seen you compete at some competitions over the years. It's been a little bit for me, and it should be fun to see you in the ring.
Thanks.
Yeah, all Jake's right, the man, dude. I look up to him, even though he's younger than me,
and significantly shorter.
Well,
hopefully that works on the thrusters.
That's right. That's a range of motion.
Do any of you guys have nicknames I can, because I'm announcing it from the floor, any nicknames I can refer to? Should I make them up?
Just Jakey Poo.
Jakey Poo. Jakey Poo Marconi. Got it.
Is that what Josh calls you?
Moose.
Mom calls me, and Josh.
Malachi the Moose. All right, gotcha. What'd you say, Jake?
Nothing of value.
Okay. I'll think of something. You could be the only one without a nickname.
I got plenty of nicknames for him. Don't worry.
Yeah, ask Brian. Surprise me.
Okay,
whatever it is, he's gonna love it.
Give yourself a nickname.
Yeah, you do. UFC fighters do it all the time.
Oh my god, I have a way off topic. Anyway, thank you guys. We'll see you this weekend, and looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Thanks.
Where is he? Get him out of there.
Yeah, get Jake out of there.
He's on the bottom row again. Yeah. All right, Jake Marconi. Definitely not calling him by the nickname that he suggested. And
Jakey Poo? I'm going with it.
And Malachi Bennett. Should be a good match. Clearly a lot of history there, just history in general, experience that both of these guys have bringing to the table. And totally opposite in terms of reps ahead. Malachi is one of the most integrated athletes with that format, having done all those matches. I know he does some testing for Phil sometimes. And then Jake, who hasn't competed very much. I mean, he did the Open. He did the Open this year. I think he 4,300th without doing very many of the CrossFit movements. So clearly still has a baseline of fitness. I see Jake all the time at competitions. Like he's doing what you'd call, body lifting, power lifting, running, aerobic stuff. And he's very good. So that's the type of guy that even if, he hasn't been training, thrusters and chest bars, like he says, 6 weeks of integrating some of those things, he's probably still going to be in pretty good form because he's riding a base of strength and aerobic capacity that he has from the training that he is doing.
Yeah. And you brought up Malachi's experience, man. We got to see that firsthand down in Jacksonville and his matchup with Riley, right? Where it was an epic match. I mean, it looked like on paper, Riley was the favorite, and Riley had a huge lead the first couple rounds. I think it ended up going 7 rounds, right? It went the distance, but it was 7 rounds, correct?
Yeah.
And I remember round 5, Malachi started making his move, and I think who knows? I mean, we talked to Phil. He wasn't very pleased with how the sequence ended, but definitely Malachi used the current sequence he had to his advantage, and he just started chipping away. I don't know if we'll get that with this format with this sequence, but in terms of like someone coming back, I think it's going to be one of those things we talked about with the women yesterday. Is like it's just going to be if it goes 3 rounds, I don't know. What do you predict between Malachi and Jake? How many rounds and who comes out on top?
I think knockout in the second round.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that I think they're both experienced enough and that they'll know that this sequence is physically demanding that they'll go I'm expecting them to go for it and try to get it over with quickly. If any of the matches drag into the 3rd round, it's like, I mean, it's going to hurt no matter what. You're obviously going head to head against a relatively comparable opponent, but by the time you get to round 3, I think if any of the matches go that long, we'll start to see just like a deterioration just in even like facial expression and whatever, because it's a hard sequence.
The cool thing about these 1v1s are, you hear a lot of athletes, especially like in semifinals. We talked to a lot of athletes. We asked them like, hey, your presence, are you seeing anything? Most of them are like, no, I'm just concentrated on the finish line. On something like this, I don't care who you are. You're paying attention to your opponent, and you're gonna.
There's a big screen in front of you that's either green or red in your favor.
Yeah,
you can't, even if you're not looking left or right, if you're winning or losing.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about that is like you're gonna see. It'll be interesting to see what athletes go out try to get that quick, just to test another athlete, push them. I could definitely see someone like Kelly Stone right off the bat trying to push Kyra, just see what she can keep up, and then in that first round, especially with the elevation. I mean, I think Kelly has that kind of advantage to her side, and she might use that to her advantage. But it'll be interesting to see because I think that workout works out really well for Kyra. Same with like Paige and Sydney. I think this workout on paper looks probably better for Paige, but I think Sydney has that capacity that.
The thing I just keep thinking back to the open workout that she did and watching how she kind of increased her intensity. I guess it was kind of around like 7 and 8 out of the 10-round workout that she did there, where I started because I wasn't expecting her to beat those athletes. All those athletes were top 8 at the CrossFit Games last year.
Yeah.
And so, but she started having this surge, and it's like that's kind of what you need in a reps ahead. It's like you need to have the ability to fight, to go dark, to push but it's at the right time. And in that workout, it was Roman who ended up pushing at the right time. Sydney pushed a little early. But reps ahead is a totally different format. So I think we'll see different strategies, and just the natural, it's like I was on this bike today doing it at the end of the DT calories, and one guy in the gym came over to look at us as we were in our last set of calories. And immediately, this is a phenomenon that Greg Glassman talked about 20 years ago. Immediately my calories per hour went up by 50. Like just because one person came in and was just over my shoulder looking at my bike. I didn't even think about it. Just like, you just have that response. Greg talked about it as like, even if your dog walks by in the garage, you're going to row a little bit harder. And in this case, you can have that kind of, I don't know if there's a physical response of like some kind of surges through your body. But when you look at the screen and you suddenly see, my rep counter is going up, his is going down. It gives you maybe like that little additional subconscious. It's a biological factor, I think, or psychological or both, to just
I think
go
it's
to the
both.
next gear.
Yeah, it definitely happened to me yesterday. My workout yesterday, we had echo bike and rowing, and when I was rowing, I suck at rowing now. I used to be really good at it, but I've been really good at echo bike. But I started. We've been doing a lot of rowing, so I'm right next to this guy, and he's pulling about 1,200. I'm at 1,100, but then I see him drop down to about 1,100. So I picked it back up to 1,200, and then around the third round, I distanced myself because we had devil's presses and wall walks in there, and I kind of distanced myself. I scaled the wall walks a little bit, so I was quicker off. But whenever the coach walked behind me, I increased my row. It was like subconsciously I was doing that, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I really like the lineup. We'll have Paige and Sydney on Thursday, so that maybe that's something we can ask them regarding how they're looking at if they've even tried the workouts. We did ask Kelly and Kyra, and they said they've done the workouts already. So we didn't dive too much into it, but I think that's planned. But yeah, one thing we didn't you briefly mentioned, Brian, was the You Cares Foundation, and why we're doing this. The new You Cares Foundation, it's a organization, it's a nonprofit that's basically trying to help veterans out, get veterans into the gym by providing fitness, nutrition, healthcare, whatever veterans need. You would think veterans are taken care of after they leave the service or while they're currently in, but they're not given resources. And I'm one of those, and I can speak from experience. I'm lucky enough that I'm surrounded by CrossFit, so that's what I use. Foundation, yeah, it's supposed to help. It's helping those heroes, helping them get in shape, and it's some really weird stuff. I mean, not weird stuff, but 64% of women and 76% of men are overweight or obese, which is it's an 8% increase higher than rates in some.
Damn.
So you wouldn't think that, but what happens when? Yeah, you wouldn't think that because these are service members that are disciplined, physical fitness. It's a part of their daily life, but I think it's one of those things when they get out for whatever reason, they're not given those resources that they normally have. You're not having morning PT sessions every day a week. You're not looking for, when you're in the military, the gym is an escape for you. It's like, hey, I want to get away from these people. I'm going to the gym. You're doing these bro sessions, but when they leave the service, that's all taken away from them. And
what about this, Patrick?
Yes.
You've been there. Actually, we had no problems up until about a minute ago, and then it started doing that thing. We've been troubleshooting that, and we think we know what the problem is, and we are going to try to solve it. But
yeah, we're going to solve it. Yeah, but no, the new You Cares, it's a great foundation. I love it. I'm glad that we're involved with something that also helps veterans out, being a veteran. So, shout out to them. Shout out to Reps Ahead for finding an organization and the athletes for supporting it.
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me of that. The last Reps Ahead podcast that we have is going to be on Thursday. James Sprague will come on 2 p.m. Eastern. We had Nick Matthew, who's his opponent yesterday. And then at 2:30, we're going to kick James out of here. Sydney Wells and Paige Powers will be the final ones on the podcast. And then also there'll be the final match on Saturday from Colorado. So that'll be Thursday. Nothing currently scheduled for tomorrow. We may do an impromptu podcast. We'll see, but it won't be specifically related to Reps Ahead like these other ones. And I think we got a couple other things, housekeeping things, recap things. Patrick?
Yeah, you sent this to me earlier. I really did enjoy reading this.
This is people in Italy that I have been having some interactions with. I do think that, I don't know if it was Halpin or Spin or somebody reposted this article a couple of weeks ago. I've kind of been sitting on it. It's written in Italian and then translated to English. So if you search Dummies at the Box and then this title, why a corporate spinoff between the traditional business and the sport/competitive component would be a necessary step for CrossFit. It was an interesting read and interesting conversation. They are approaching this topic from the lens of a European one, which is that they felt like they were slighted in terms of their qualifying spots this year to the games, but they use this kind of like zooming in problem as they identify it is an opportunity to talk about a bigger picture concept, which is, should there be a split between the sport of CrossFit and the business of CrossFit from the affiliation and training department side of things? It's not a new conversation. I remember being at the 2018 CrossFit Games, and there were already people having this kind of conversation. At that time, they would say the split was potentially going to be between CrossFit Health, which is clearly where Greg Glassman was investing a lot of his time, and then CrossFit Games or CrossFit Sport. And there's been evolutions of this conversation for a while. I do think if this is a topic that's interesting to you, it's a pretty good read. They do have some good points. They also acknowledge at the end of the article, because I remember as I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, they're probably not aware of this, so they don't know that. They acknowledge that at the end of the article, basically saying, this is just based on information that we have, and we know that there's information that we don't have. But I thought they did a fairly good job of presenting why this could potentially be a valuable forward trajectory for both the kind of affiliate training business and the sport of CrossFit.
Yeah, I highly suggest we'll put the link to the article in the description, so that way if you want to watch it or read it, it's a very good read. Again, you said it's not something that's new, but it's definitely something. It's good to get a perspective from someone over in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other one I'm trying to pull up, stall wise.
I know what you're gonna pull up. So this past weekend I was at Fittest, South Carolina. It was the first of 4 stops on our summer tour. We haven't really talked too much about it, but Dylan Knezovich, who took over the competition last year from Gordon Lake, moved this competition in year number 5 outside of an affiliate for the first time. He had Greenville Convention Center, a huge facility, 2 competition floors with a rig back to back with each other, about 150 total athletes in 12 divisions that qualified in their respective divisions through the open and quarterfinals. And the competition as a whole, I think, was a big success, very well received, challenging workouts for sure. There were a lot of athletes who got a PR, whether in a gymnastics or a weightlifting component on the field of play. And there were others that were stopped in their tracks because of, something challenging that was programmed. But that was the intent of the competition. He views it as a championship caliber event for the best athletes in the state that have made their way there through the game season. So in his mind, he's thinking this is kind of like these athletes, CrossFit Games. And at the games, sometimes there's movements that stop the best in the world in their tracks. And he was programming from that intent. So it was kind of cool to watch the balance of athletes, being like very fit people, being in competition and not being able to do something. And then others who were able to overcome and achieve something new for the first time. However, did you find it yet?
Yeah.
Yes, no. Okay. On the second day of competition, there was a master's athlete there who had a pretty serious medical trauma on the field of play. And we weren't obviously sure what was going on. She was doing the ski erg. She fell to the competition floor. Medics came out. EMT eventually came. They had a wheelchair. Then they had to bring a stretcher. She was kind of in and out of consciousness. It was a pretty scary moment. The heat kind of finished. Then we shut down both the competition floors, and eventually they were able to get her up and out of the facility. She went to the hospital, and it turns out, I didn't quite get the full picture, but it turns out that there was some problem with her heart that was causing a problem with her brain. It was this happens in sports. When something like this happens during a sport, it's not that the sport has caused the trauma. It's like it happened during the sport, and this is probably something that was developing within her. But basically, she had to go into emergency surgery, and we were getting like some news of this on site. It was like, pretty difficult news to receive, especially for the competition organizer who's running this competition. It's kind of like your biggest fear or nightmare that something like this would happen. Long story short, she went into the surgery. Things were not looking great that night. They were looking a lot better the next morning. Last I heard, she was she's still on life support. She is recovering. They're addressing, it was kind of a stroke was kind of what ended up happening here. So they're addressing that situation, and they're projecting, 2 to 3 weeks in the hospital, and then hopefully being able to go back home. But there is a GoFundMe that's available for FEBIE. who's an athlete there. We put the link there in the comments. We'll put it in the description of the YouTube video. You see that they're, on their way towards reaching that goal. But I checked in with Dylan, trying to just keep updated on how she's doing, and wanted to share that here in case anyone wants to support financially or through prayer or anything else. That's the ways that you guys like to support a member of the community who's clearly in need of some support right now. Heavy.
Yeah, definitely our wishes. Definitely put that, as you see in the chat, we've put the link to the GoFundMe will also include for the show, and we'll bring it up again probably on Thursday as well. But did you get a chance to watch Dave? We'll move on. Did you get a chance to watch Dave Castro's interview with Brooke? Or
I actually watched the one with Brent.
Oh, he did one with Brent already. Okay.
I think that might be accurate, Melanie. I don't know the technical name, but yeah, he actually released. I think he's done Brooke Wells, Justin Federis, and Brent Fikowski. I watched the Brent Fikowski one. For you guys who aren't aware, Dave Castro is making an effort, at least reaching out to all of the individual games qualifiers this year to do these 10-ish minute interviews. And obviously, he's got some pretty high-profile ones off the bat. I really enjoyed I thought the one with Brent was really fun. I actually really enjoyed it. I even texted Dave afterwards and told him that was a really fun interview. It's only 12 minutes long. It was a great listen. So I will go back and listen to Justin and Brooke. These are extremely digestible. It's very authentic. They're even like he does, like Patrick said yesterday, he gives the athletes a chance to ask questions, and Brent's like, well, I'm not going to ask you a question that I know you won't answer. And Dave, he goes, I'm pretty good at that. Getting asked a question and not answering it. But Brent does ask him a kind of a thoughtful question there towards the end. And Brent has been very open in terms of sharing some of his philosophy, strategies, the things he's learned over the years. And he shares a few of those in this interview with Dave. They have a little back and forth about whether they agree about certain things. I know he's keeping short on purpose, but I wish they were longer. Yeah. We do the kind of these long form interviews, and it is nice because you can kind of dive into some stuff, but there's definitely a group of people that are not going to sit down and watch a 90-minute interview. And then there's, the people who are watching this, you're the type of people that would. And the rest, there's a lot of people that if they see something that's 90 minutes, they don't even click on it. But if they see something that's 10 to 15, they might be able to find a window at lunch right before bed, something like that to watch that. And I think for those type of people, this is going to be a very kind of quick touch point with each athlete, and also a chance to see inside the mind of Dave, because even in the way that he asks the questions, you can get some insights into some specific things. I mean, he's clearly in the middle of games testing. And if you like doing those kind of Sherlock Holmes investigations, like J.R. Howell has made famous, if Dave brings up a random example in a question like a sandbag, well, he's a human, and maybe it's just that he just had a sandbag being tested in the other room. And so that was at the forefront of his mind, potentially. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. I
think
Brent
would be an awesome coach if he chooses to, for sure.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the short, digestible. We're shooting more for a podcast as well. So obviously, if you watch us live on YouTube, we're also available where you can download us. Dave's not doing that. And Dave has that perspective. It's pretty cool. I like him. I watched the Justin Medeiros one. It was kind of cool. It was a really good one. It'll be interested to see as he, he's obviously starting off with the athletes he knows, he's seen for a while. He has some type of personal relationship with. It'll be interesting what he does for some of the lesser known athletes, like a Claudia Gluck or a Gemma Rader or a Ron Portiger. I don't know.
I'm not actually 100% sure how to pronounce his name. Guider is how it's
Guider. Yeah, I made it French at the end, so my apologies to him if he's watching. But no, I thought it was really cool. I noticed that CrossFit is cross promoting it. So I don't know if it's available on CrossFit's YouTube, but it's definitely available on Dave. So I really like this. I think we talked about it last year, where Dave seems like he's changed in many aspects, and him doing this is those who know Dave, he says he doesn't really pay too much attention to outside media, what other people are doing. But I think he's making a conscious effort to do that now. And starting off like getting those athletes is one way to doing it.
I say it was like an evolution, right? He's kind of evolving into a new kind of phase of his role there. Maybe some ways off camera, but in this way on camera. And actually, he's really surprised me. There's a lot of times where if you listen to Dave talk, he doesn't have good recollection of competitions and moments from competitions from years past, but he recalls basically the first time that he met Brent Fikowski, and even kind of chuckles at himself that he's surprised he remembers it, and it's a good story. So highly recommend checking him out. Very cool that he's doing that. I think Dave did a great job inviting civil discourse to in this instance. I think that was the kind of thing Donfall was saying he welcomes, as opposed to constant barrage of negativity. Yeah, absolutely nothing negative about these. It's just a conversation between the director of the sport and some of the best athletes in the world. Very cool.
Yeah, there's yesterday was a really interesting day because he had Dave's weekend review where, at the end of it, he kind of went after some of the negativity in the sport, specifically Andrew Hiller. And then you had Pedro's really good podcast interview with Don Fall. If you haven't watched that, watch it. I highly suggest it. And Don kind of reiterated like, hey, and reiterated that too in terms of the negativity, and that they want to kind of go in a positive way. That they'll take criticism. They're fine with criticism, but if it's constant barrage and negativity, especially when you attack someone of their own, I mean, yeah. So really interesting day yesterday. And I know Sevon did something regarding it, and I'm sure Hillary will put something out there. But just very interesting day yesterday. A lot of cool stuff on. I say this all the time. Again, there's a lot of content out there. Dave coming out with his little thing is another source. And if you're a fan of the sport and you're a fan of athletes, now's a perfect time to soak it all in. So,
yeah. CJ says, I don't watch Dave. Let me know if something comes up I need to know. I think it's just, this is kind of like the interviews that we do with athletes, Sevon, Pedro, any of these guys, like none of those are need to watches. Those are, there's this big kind of perspective that people have that if you want the sport to continue to grow, being more forward in communicating who these people are, not just who they are as athletes, but who the people are, can help people have these kind of connections with them. Even yesterday when we had Kyra and Kelly on here, there were a couple of you in the comments that were saying, oh, wow, I'm rooting for Kyra now, not just at Repside, but also at the games. They just got to know her a little bit more through 30 minutes that she was on a show with us. So that can certainly happen. I would say to someone like CJ, if you're you don't need to watch those things with Dave, but if there's an athlete that he ends up having an interview with and you're particularly curious about that athlete, there's not a lot of content out about some of the athletes that are competing at the games. Not all of them are easy to get into these kind of environments. That might be a good one to watch, or if your favorite athlete does that, that can be fun to watch. But if you're also just like a person who likes looking for the clues in the programming, I wouldn't be surprised if consciously or subconsciously Dave, lets a little something slip on from time to time on those.
Yeah. We're getting close to a milestone. We're almost close to 4,000 subscribers. So I know everyone here in the chat, they're obviously subscribers and supporters. So, but if you're watching this and you aren't a subscriber, please, it means a lot to us if you would subscribe. It really does. It's something as simple as pushing a button, but it does wonders for us. It really does. It helps us in terms of getting our stuff out there. The more subscribers you have, obviously, the more priority you're given whenever people go to YouTube, and people discover who we are or what we're about, and it puts it up. I guess everything's about the algorithm, right? but no, it really does mean a lot. I mean, to have, when we first started this, me and Brian, we're just like, man, to just have anyone listen to what we have to say is amazing. But now to have close to 4,000 people subscribe and that get alerts that listen to whatever we have to say, whether it be meaningful or not, it's amazing. And we certainly wouldn't do it if it wasn't for your support, and we continue to do it because of that. So Yeah. So if you're listening, not a subscriber, go ahead. If you are a subscriber, hey, why don't you click and get that alert button? Because obviously what you've seen over the last couple of weeks is that we've been putting out almost 4 to 5 videos a week. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and we want to continue on doing that, and we want to continue on doing other things outside of maybe even the CrossFit space. So, you know.
Well, and we got a big summer coming up, quite frankly. You know, reps ahead. We'll be in Norway. We'll be in Scotland. We're trying to line something up here in the States in July. We'll see if it works. And then obviously the games, we're going to have a ton of content. I don't think I'll be working for CrossFit or the broadcast at the games this year. So it'll free me up to do some stuff that I haven't been able to do with regards to the CrossFit games for the past several years when I am working at the games. For, you know, obviously there's some limitations there when you have access to information. And then, we're going to be, you know, hitting the ground hard starting in late August. We got some very cool stuff coming up with some competitions that you guys are going to be well aware of, and an opportunity to get acquainted with some other new ones. I'm like, we get new on the calendar. We got Belgrade Games in September, which has a huge slate of competitive European athletes at it. We're going to be doing some work with the Tier Cups at SoCal Wadapalooza, and the conversations that we've been having and planning for that are extremely exciting. So be on the lookout for a lot of announcements, updates, and then more of, you know, the interviews and the commentary and stuff that we do throughout the summer, leading into some pretty cool stuff this fall as well.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations to Metcon Rush. They announced yesterday that they sold out all their spectator tickets. So, you know,
damn, that is great. Actually a big deal.
That's
because
awesome.
You know, obviously it was a hot topic of conversation during the semifinals, with all the international competitions appearing to have these massive fan bases selling out, big crowds. And then, not that this, you know, there was a lot of criticism around West Coast, but we know that the venue was just huge. And then good crowd at Syndicate, probably the best crowd that we've seen in one of those Knoxville competitions over the last couple of years, but still obviously not selling out. So Metcon Rush their roster is good. Yeah, we were talking to Nick about them yesterday, because Nick Matthews is going to be competing there. And that's the competition in the States that we're trying to find a way to kind of work with and support in July. So we'll see if we can able to do that. But either way, good follow, good competition, probably the best. I mean, there's Monster Games, but they have, you know, all the athletes come through the qualifier. Metcon Rush held some spots for some pretty legit athletes that have decided to do that competition mid-July. So probably the best competition in the States between now and the games. At least that I know of.
Yeah, Scott Tetlow will be there. I mean, well, Jorge was originally. I don't think he's competing there. I don't know if Brittany Weiss is or not. But,
she's still on the roster. Yeah, he sent me the full roster. On the men's side, Nick Matthew, Luis Oscar Mora, Scott Tetlow, Pete Mason, Tony. Yeah,
Tony.
There's a bunch of guys, but those are kind of the biggest names. Hannah Hardy, Freya Moosbrugger, Brittany Weiss, Ariel Saunders, Mary Helen Saunders, who was at the semis, Nicole Burke, Sam Pugh, Katie Callior, Amanda Fisher, who won Fittest of the Coast, Grace Lochner. Yeah. So definitely some good athletes competing there.
It's a really good balance between some young athletes, some veterans who are from the holdovers from the regional days. So it's really cool. I mean, you can't put a price on competition experience. I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, we heard Jake and Malachi talk about that, you know, the earlier years when they're just competing at anything they can find. But then to graduate to something like Granite Games, and we said that there's not something like Granite Games right now. And, you know, Metcon Rush is maybe, and, you know, First Form Monster Games, you know, those could be something that can turn into those one of these days. Or, you know, if Granite Games doesn't come back or something like that. But cool. But yeah. I think that's it, man. Yeah.
All right.
That's about.
Well, thank you to thanks to Jake and Malachi. Really excited to watch them. I really am excited for all the matches this weekend. And like Patrick said, you know, we'll turn on the alerts, whatever. We'll be on site, obviously, streaming live the whole competition here on B.Friendly Fitness. And can't sign off without saying thanks to HGR. As always, they've been supporting us throughout the entire year. Check out those guys if you haven't yet. Friend 20 for a discount there. HGR CBD, helping with all the recovery stuff. If you wanted more deep dive on the article for Reps Ahead, there it's over on BeFriendlyFitness.com. Break down all the individual matchups, links to the athletes Instagrams, etc.
And times, bout times, roughly, those are all mountain time currently. So local.
Yeah, one of the challenges about CrossFit competitions in general, and I mean, so Tier SoCal's, address this with their format, is that they string out throughout the whole day. Well, this is a very confined window. From start to finish is less than 3 hours. And basically a match is going to go off every 20 minutes. So if there's one specifically that you don't want to miss live, you can see about the time it's going to be on. And if you want to watch the whole thing, you can just block off that 2.5 hour window and get it done. Like I said, SoCal's got a similar format where they're going to have community competition all day, but then in the evenings for the streaming, it's a condensed block that's more digestible, like watching a basketball or a hockey game or something like that in a 2 to 3 hour window. CJ loved all the interviews this week. I was trying to watch between wedding events, but I kept missing the lives. Hey man, we appreciate it. We appreciate you all the time, CJ.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. Well, cool. Well, keep an eye out. We might have a guest for tomorrow, continuing our kind of like games athlete series. So keep an eye out for that. If not, then we'll definitely see you Thursday. It'll be a little bit quicker, or at least I'll leave immediately after the interview to head to the airport to head to Denver. But so we appreciate all the support. Reps ahead, excited about it. It's something that's been a long time coming. I think it's really cool that we're involved with it. But and we're also it's really cool that everyone's here joining us on this adventure. So as always, be friendly, our friends.